Okay, so a few more steps about aerobic respiration here. Aerobic respiration is basically a multiple step reaction that gets completed in the following steps. So we will basically learn about these steps in detail, but before we happen to learn these steps in detail, we need to have a fair idea as to what happens where. Okay, so in aerobic respiration the following steps takes place. One, glycolysis. So what happens in glycolysis is glucose is broken down into two molecules of pyruvic acid. Glucose is basically a 6 molecule compound. We all know it's a 6 carbon compound, and pyruvic acid happens to be a 3 carbon compound. So one glucose molecule basically breaks down into two molecules of pyruvic acid. So that's how the 6 carbon compound is adjusted into two molecules of pyruvic acid which contain 3 carbons each. Okay, then we have the link reaction in which two molecules of pyruvic acid are converted into acetyl coenzyme A. Okay, so two molecules of pyruvic acid basically get converted into acetyl coenzyme A. Then we have the Krebs cycle. In Krebs cycle, what happens is this acetyl coenzyme A which is produced there is broken down to release carbon dioxide. Okay, so in all the above processes we keep on getting NADPH2. Now NADPH2 is basically something which we will keep on getting in all the above reactions. Now then we have the fourth step is ETC, which is also known as electron transport chain. Okay, so electron transport chain, NADPH is broken down and electrons run down the gradients. So DPH is broken down and electrons run down the gradients, putting protons, or rather pushing protons, into the outer mitochondrial space. So they happen to go into the outer mitochondrial space. Then we have oxidative phosphorylation. So what does oxidative phosphorylation means? ATP is processed here. Okay, in aerobic respiration, except for the first step of glycolysis, all other steps take place in the mitochondria. So in aerobic respiration, except for the first process of glycolysis, which happens to take place in cytoplasm, all other steps are taking place in the mitochondria. So this was a brief summary of what are the steps that happen in aerobic respiration. Okay, so in this one we will discuss about the phases of respiration. So we have breathing or ventilation. The first process is breathing or ventilation, without which respiration will not start. Okay, so respiratory gases enter into our body, that is called basically breathing or respiration. Exchange of respiratory gases, so between the alveoli which is present in the lungs, alveoli and the blood, there is exchange of gases that takes place. And then we have transport of respiratory gases by blood. So the blood basically transport the respiratory gases. So this is transport of respiratory gases by blood. Exchange of gases between the blood and the tissues. So there happens to be an exchange of gases between the blood and the tissues. So these are certain things that happen. And then finally, using of oxygen for breaking down of glucose. So breaking down of glucose, and finally release of energy. So these are certain steps of the aerobic respiration in particular, because here we are using oxygen. So this will be the exact process of aerobic respiration. Okay, now as we discussed, there were certain characteristics of a respiratory surface. There were certain characteristics of respiratory surface. For example, it should be moist, it should be having a large surface area, it should be permeable. All these things we have already discussed in the previous slide. So now we are going to talk about certain pigments which assist in the process of respiration. So these are few pigments which assist in the process of respiration, and the carbon dioxide or the oxygen molecule happen to bind with them. Okay, so the first one is hemoglobin. This is basically an iron containing pigment, and in humans it is found in RBCs. In lower animals like earthworm, it is found in plasma. So in humans it is found in RBCs, and in lower animals like earthworm it is found in plasma. Okay, then we have hemoerythrin. Hemoerythrin is again an iron containing pigment. It is generally found in annelidas. Okay, then we have hemocyanin. This is basically copper containing pigment. It is blue colored, as we all know, most of the copper solutions are blue. Okay, so it is copper containing blue colored pigment, and it is generally found in mollusks. Okay, then as the name itself suggests, echinodome. So this is basically an iron containing pigment and is found in the members of echinodermata. Okay. Then we have vanadium. Vanadium, we all know it's also an element. So vanadium, this is generally found in the coelomic fluid of protochordates. So coelomic fluid of protochordates. So these are certain pigments which in different animals assist in different ways in the process of respiration. Okay, so we are going to look into how they do assist in the process of respiration. Okay, so we will now discuss about the various surfaces through which respiration generally happens. Okay, so the first surface is the general body surface, which is also known as the skin. So how does respiration happen here? Let's say flatworms, earthworms, leeches, most of the crawling creatures, okay, they do not have special respiratory organs. They do not have special respiratory organs. Their skin itself behaves as a respiratory organ. So oxygen is taken in and given out carbon dioxide directly through their skin. So they take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide directly through their skin. They either live in a moist environment or have their skin covered with a thin mucus-like membrane. So their skin is basically thin film of moist mucus-like fluid for efficient exchange of gases. So frogs generally will have this moist mucus. This mucus is basically slippery. Okay, it's thin, and it always keeps the skin moist. Okay, so this is mucus-like fluid for efficient exchange of gases. So mostly earthworms, leeches, and flatworms. In fact, in earthworms, they have a rich supply of they have a vascular skin, which means there is a rich supply of blood to that skin as well. Okay. So this type of respiration is known as cutaneous respiration. And organisms which undergo cutaneous respiration, if their skin happens to go dry, they will die. Okay, so that's one thing, that their skin always needs to be moist for maximum respiration to happen. So there is one thing which is general body surface. So types of respiratory surfaces and organs which we are trying to study. The first one is general body surface. Let's say some organisms which are unicellular, their respiration happens through plasma membrane. We all know that plasma membrane is the outer membrane of any cell. So plasma membrane, the exchange of gases occurs through the whole surface area, which means let's say this is basically an amoeba, and the exchange of gases will occur through the entire surface area of the plasma membrane of the cell. This takes place in generally unicellular or lower classes of animals. There is example, let's say we have aerobic bacteria, protistans like amoeba. All these are basically examples. Also it occurs in porphyrins and colintrates. So it also happens in porphyrins and colintrates, like let's say in sponges or in even hydra. Okay, each and every cell obtains oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide, okay, by diffusion of gases, which happens primarily through plasma membrane. So it happens in unicellular animals like amoeba, and sometimes it also happens in multicellular animals like hydra, wherein it is again absorbed. All the absorption and diffusion takes place through the plasma membrane. Okay, now we have the track. So these earthworms or organisms through which the respiration happens through their skin are also, this process is also known as cutaneous respiration. This process in itself is known as cutaneous respiration. Now we have the tracheal system. The tracheal system is basically seen in insects or arthropods like cockroaches and all. Okay, so there is an internal system of fine tubes, which are basically chitinous tubes, okay, which are seen in arthropods. The air is directly poured into the body and is in contact with each and every part of the body directly. So the exchange of gases happens between the air and the tissues directly, and there is no involvement of blood in this. Okay, in our case there is an involvement of blood in the process of respiration, but here the exchange of gases takes place between these tubes and the different cells of the body. So generally there is no other medium like blood which is required for the transfer. So that is called a tracheal system. Generally it is seen in arthropods or insects. Okay, so these are certain types of respirations. We will look into more. Alright people, so we will continue with the different types of systems that are available. So we have learned that there are some earthworms, leeches, who basically have their respiration happening through their skin. And then we have the tracheal system. Tracheal system is basically present in many arthropods, in which their tubules, fine network of tubules, their body fluid, just as in our case, the body fluid is basically taking part in respiration. In insects, wherein it's the tracheal system, the body part is not in, their body fluid is not involved in respiration. So the passage of air in the tracheal system is as given. Spiracles are there, then it goes into the trachea, then it goes into the tracheoles, and finally it goes into the tissues. So the air actually passes into the spiracles, then it goes into the trachea, then it goes into the tracheoles, and then it goes into the tissues. So that's how the tracheal system works. So the rhythmic movement of the thoracic and the abdominal muscles. So there is a rhythmic movement in insects between the thoracic and the abdominal muscles. So there is a continuous movement that renews the air in the tracheal system. This renews the air in the tracheal system. Okay, so the body fluid in insects, the body fluid does not distribute the gases, but simply acts as a stationary medium for diffusion. So it is not taking part in the diffusion of gases, it is just a stationary medium, and that takes part for diffusion. So we have now gills. Gills basically help in respiration. So now we will move on to fishes and all. So this system is called the branchial respiration. Just as in insects we have the tracheal respiration, in fishes wherein we have gills, we have the branchial respiration. So marine annelids, molluscs, prawns, fishes, etc., and some tadpole stages of many animals, the water contains much less oxygen and the diffusion rate is much slower than in air. Okay, so the diffusion rate is much slower than in air. They have a series of gills. So these gills are there, these gills are like this, these have a series of gills, and there is one-way current of water. So there is one-way current of water. So in fishes there are gill pouches and each contains a gill. So there are gill pouches in fishes and each one of them contains a gill. Each gill has about 60 to 70 thin membranes, leaf-like lamellae. So these are basically leaf-like lamelles. Each lamellae on its upper and lower surface has numerous gill plates. So there are gill plates, and these gill plates basically increase the surface area. Okay, they have fine network of capillaries. So these capillaries are basically connecting into the gills. So we have studied what is basically the skin, and this is called the branchial system of respiration. Now we will move on to our system, which is basically the pulmonary system of respiration. Okay. Alright, so we will now talk about fishes in general. How does the mechanism of respiration through gills in fishes happens? Okay, so water basically is drawn in through the mouth, obviously, and when it actually goes into the mouth of a fish, this closes. So the floor is basically raised. This entire floor basically is raised. Okay, so it passes over to the buccal cavity. This water basically passes on to the buccal cavity, then through pharynx, and then it goes into the pharynx. On closing the mouth and raising the floor of buccal cavity. So basically, the moment it closes its mouth, the floor of the buccal cavity is raised and the water is forced to pass through the gills. The water basically forced to pass through the gills and pumped out. Okay, this water is basically pumped out. So water enters from the mouth. In the fishes, the floor of the buccal cavity is basically lowered. First it is lowered. As the mouth opens, it is lowered. Then as the mouth closes, the buccal cavity is raised, and hence the water is forced to pass through the gills. So as water passes through the gills, gill lamellae and gill plates, diffusion of gases takes place. So as the water passes through these stages, the diffusion of gases will basically take place. So what is the pathway for the diffusion of gases in fishes? We have the mouth of the fish. The moment it opens up, the water enters. The moment it closes, the buccal cavity is basically raised. So from the mouth it passes into the buccal cavity, then it passes into the pharynx, and then the gills. Okay, so this is basically the pathway, and directly outside or through operculum. So there is something called as operculum through which it passes out, or directly it is thrown out from the gills. So we have the counter flow of water. Now we have to understand this, that how does this entire exchange takes place. So if the water is flowing like this, the blood in the fishes flows like this. So this is what we mean a counter flow, because when counter flow happens, an efficient exchange of gases takes place. To have an efficient gaseous exchange taking place, the flow of water and the flow of blood should be in the opposite direction. So the flow of water, wherever the pathway is, from mouth to buccal cavity and then through the pharynx to the gills and then outside to the through the operculum or to the gills plate itself. So this movement of water and the flow of blood are in opposite direction. So counter flow system ensures that the blood constantly meets the water because it increases the contact area. This blood constantly meets the water and has relatively higher oxygen concentration. Okay, so the blood constantly meets and has relatively higher oxygen concentration. So water basically has higher oxygen concentration. Thus O2 from water can be absorbed through the entire length of the gill lamellae. So the entire length of the gill lamellae, the O2 from the water can be absorbed. Because see, any which ways the concentration of O2 in water is less, which means that more of water absorption should take place, and in order to increase the rate of absorption of oxygen from water, this mechanism is there that both of them, the blood and the water, flow in opposite directions. Okay, so O2 from the water can be absorbed through the entire length of the gill lamellae and the gill plate. So this is basically the blood, the oxygen comes in and the carbon dioxide is released into the water and gill plate. This system enables bony fishes, if you talk about bony fishes, to extract 80% of oxygen from water, and cartilaginous fishes, they extract about 50% of oxygen from water. So this entire arrangement of gill enables bony fishes to extract approximately 80% of oxygen from water, and the cartilaginous fishes, which have less of bones in them, to extract about 50% of oxygen from water. Okay, so this is basically the mechanism of fishes. What we have to understand and remember is the counter flow of water and blood in both the systems. Okay, so in this slide we are going to discuss some more animals and their respiratory systems. Okay, so we had discussed about fishes and we have discussed about insects as well. Now we will come to our part, which is basically the lungs. So organisms which have lungs for the respiration, which of course we will deal with later in this chapter descriptively, as the chapter is all about it itself. Okay, so this type of respiration is known as pulmonary respiration. This type of respiration is known as pulmonary respiration. It happens in all vertebrate and land animals. Okay, all vertebrate animals and land animals, this takes place. They have internal sacs called lungs, which are present in all air breathing vertebrates. So we know what lungs are, as we have been studying about it since our very earlier times in our classes, in earlier standards as well. So these are basically sacs which are present in all breathing vertebrates. This happens in adult amphibians. For example, frogs. In frogs, in the earlier stages of their life, they do not have lungs for breathing. They generally breathe through their through the gills. Okay, in frogs. As and when they become adult, their lungs develop and they start to respire through lungs. So adult amphibians, it means adult frogs. We have reptiles, birds and mammals. Okay, so this type of respiration is primarily known as pulmonary respiration. Now there are certain animals which have book lungs. Scorpions and spiders, they have book lungs. Okay, then we have book gills. Lamallus, which is basically an aquatic organism. Then there are certain animals which have pulmonary sac. The modified pulmonary sac is basically modified mantle cavity, and this is noticed in molluscus as well. Okay, all right. So here now we will talk about what are tracheoles and what are bronchioles. Bronchioles are present in animals which have lungs, or rather pulmonary respiration, and tracheoles are basically present in arthropods or insects. Okay, so tracheoles do not have a body fluid. Their respiration is direct. It enters through the tube and it gets transported to the entire body part. So this is present in insects or arthropods. This type of respiration is basically present in mammals like us. Okay, there is fine intracellular tubes present deep into the cells. So there are intracellular tubes which are present deep into the cells, not intracellular and present in the lungs itself. So this is just present in the lungs. So the distribution here is throughout the body. The distribution here is only till the lungs. Okay, end blindly in the cells. So these tubular structures, they end blindly into the cells. So they will be distributed throughout the body, branch further and ultimately end in alveolar sacs. So we know that in lungs we have alveolar sacs like this. So these will branch out and end in alveolar sacs, whereas they are distributed throughout the body. Okay, filled with watery fluid at blind end. So there is a watery fluid at the blind end because fluid basically increases the absorption. Okay, not filled with any kind of watery fluid. In fact, if watery fluid gets filled in our lungs, then it will start, or rather the mucus congestion will start. Okay, so this is basically difference between tracheoles and bronchioles. Okay, now there is an interesting feature of earthworms which we have earlier studied. Earthworms generally have their moist skin for as a breathing surface. So use their entire outer skin for breathing. They will use their entire outer skin for breathing. Skin is thin and almost transparent and richly supplied with blood capillaries. So if you look at the skin, this will be basically the epidermal layer of the skin, and these blood capillaries will be like touching the surface of the skin. So these are basically blood capillaries which are touching the surface of the skin. So the skin is generally kept moist. Okay, the body skin is covered with a moist film containing secretions of, there are epidermal mucous glands which keep the skin moist, because if the skin goes dry, then the earthworm will dry. Okay, so there is a basically the moist skin, epidermal mucous glands are located in the skin which help to keep it moist. Then there are excretory wastes which are coming out. Then there is coelomic fluid which also helps in keeping the skin moist. Okay, so the exchange of gases takes place between their looped epidermal blood capillaries and moist skin. So the exchange of gases will basically take place between these looped blood capillaries and the moist skin. So there the exchange takes place. The exchange of gases directly takes place here. Okay, as we know, the earthworms will not have any kind of RBCs. Now we know that RBCs are the ones which in us carry the hemoglobin pigment. So no RBCs are present. The respiratory pigments in hemoglobin is dissolved in the blood plasma. It is basically dissolved in the blood plasma. Okay, and these carry the oxygen in the body. So the skin surface acts as a permeable membrane. The entire skin surface acts as a permeable membrane. Partial pressure of oxygen in the blood plasma is low. So the partial pressure of oxygen in the blood plasma is low. So oxygen diffuses outside. Okay, now let's say that this blood plasma, the oxygen concentration is low. So the oxygen from outside diffuses in, and simultaneously carbon dioxide diffuses out. Okay, so this is what happens in basically earthworms. So this was pretty much about all other animals, how respiration takes place and all the stuff that happens. Now we will slowly and steadily move towards the human respiratory system. So this basically covers a part of the introductory lecture or introductory thesis about the entire respiratory system. So now we will by and large proceed ahead to our respiratory system, that is in humans. Okay, so now we move on to the most important portion of this chapter, that is human respiratory system. The reason why we would study human respiratory system as a whole is because human respiratory system is the actual representation of a respiratory system in higher mammals. Okay, so the humans, basically this is the human respiratory system. This is the human respiratory system. Okay, humans have lungs as respiratory organs. So they have lungs as respiratory organs, and they undergo respiration by lungs, and this type of respiration is basically known as pulmonary respiration. Okay, so this is known as pulmonary respiration. So how does the air pass in the human respiratory system? First, it enters the external nostrils, it goes through the nasal cavity or the nasal chamber. So this goes to the nasal cavity, it enters through the nostrils, it goes to the nasal cavity or the nasal chamber, then it enters the nasopharynx. This is basically the nasopharynx or upper part of the pharynx. So the upper part of our pharynx is basically known as the nasopharynx. Here it enters and then it moves into the oropharynx, okay, behind buccal cavity. So it moves into the oropharynx, which is behind buccal cavity, and then it moves into the laryngopharynx. So it moves into the laryngopharynx, behind larynx, and then it moves into the larynx, which is basically the voice box. Larynx, which is basically the voice box. Then it enters into the trachea. The trachea is basically just before it divides and moves on to the both of the lungs. Here I have just shown one lung here. It moves into the trachea, which is basically a cartilaginous tube. This trachea is basically here a cartilaginous tube is starting, and this is known as the trachea. Then it moves into the bronchi, which is basically the left and right. Both ways it moves into the bronchi. So these are the bronchi basically. Bronchioles, and then it moves into the bronchioles. So this is the bronchi where it moves in, and then it moves into the bronchioles. So these are smaller tubes. Then the respiratory bronchioles, these are the smallest of all tubes. These are the smallest of all tubes. Finally, they enter into the alveolar ducts. So these are basically alveolar sacs in which it enters. Alveoli or air sac. So that's the final journey out here. Okay, this is how the entire air moves into the left and the right lungs. If you look into the lungs, so this is basically how it enters. So there is a pleural membrane. So this membrane and this membrane, these are known as pleural membranes, and the cavity which is filled inside them is known as pleural cavity. So this is just a basic outline of how a human respiratory system externally looks like. Okay.